Okay, so the reason we had to call a special meeting is because I'm part of the liaison committee for the Office of Environmental Health Services, and during our meeting on February 13th, Judy Vallandingham, who's the director of Bureau for Public Health, made it clear that the West Virginia legislature is expected to repeal 64 CSR 30 in April. She said April 1st, and Karen heard from somebody that it was the 15th. It's unclear. But when that happens, she said that we no longer have our code that sets the fees and gives us definitions for the establishments that we charge permit fees for. So basically, we were told that, and all local health departments will need to have their own local fees in place by the time this is repealed. And when that's repealed, they're also going to be removing they're all in the same Senate Bill 17 bundle right now. They're going to be removing any references from local boards of health from 64 CSR 51, which is fees for services. And that's where we had our authority for that. But now our authority will be set in just the West Virginia Code 16211, and it gives us the authority to make our own rule with fees. So that is what I have done. And according to 16211, the procedures that we need to follow to do that is I need to get your approval for public notice on whichever rule that you approve, the one with the current fees that we have now or the one with an increase in fees. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. We also have to, once you approve it for public notice, the rule requires that we provide public notice on our website and the state register site. It does not specify a time frame for the public notice in that code. So it doesn't say, there's no minimum time frame for the public notice in the code. And then we have to have another meeting with approval and adoption by the Board of Health with an implementation date for the rule, and then it has to be approved by the county commission within 30 days of your approval. So the next county commission meetings are March 7th, March 21st, and April 4th. Our next regular meeting is March 8th. And then the last step is filing the new rule with the county clerk's office after it's been approved by everybody. So those are the steps in 16211 that we have to follow to implement a rule.
Is the county commission, so the county commission has 30 days to accept it or deny it, I guess.
Accept it or do nothing or deny it. If they do nothing or deny it, then it's voided. So
what does voided mean? So then we still can't collect fees?
Yeah, we'd have to try and start over. So
and then the other question is, what is their specified notice time? Do they have
for public notice for the county commission?
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't, I don't know what they require for notices before they do something like that. I think it just would have to be as part of the agenda packet because we've already provided public notice in the county. So I don't think that they're going to have to do another public notice. And so I used the guidance documents that the Association of Local Health Departments put out for everybody. They sent it out to all the administrators, and I used those to create our rule. It's very similar to 64 CSR 30. It does have a couple of things either added in or taken out of what the rule that we are using right now. And then I combined it with fees for services. So we just have one rule instead of two separate rules that address that. I did do two separate rules, as I said, one with the current fees and one with a proposed increase in fees. We have not increased our fees since it was November of 2020 when we adopted the last fees that the state put out in this rule. So it was the Association of Local Health Departments that proposed that we do a 20% increase in our fees, and that's what I used for the permit fees. And it's mostly what I use for the fees for services, although it's not quite 20% with all of those. And then there were a couple other edits and things to consider while we're looking at these rules. And one of the things that I noticed is the mass gathering in the current fees for services rule, that needs to be changed. It said $72 per event under one portion. So I'll have to make that edit if we decide to go with that rule. And I'm proposing to change modified to amended in section 4.2 as well. I did want to have a discussion, or have you discuss what you would like to do as far as our public comment period. If you decide to put it out for a 30-day public comment period, which is not required by Chapter 16, and that's what we're going by right now. But if you were to decide to put it out for a 30-day public comment period, then the soonest we would be able to meet to discuss it is after March 25th. And then we'd still have to get it on the agenda for the county commission, and their next meeting after that would be April 4th. So I would like to have it done before April if you were to put it out for public comment, and then only until our next meeting. That would be a shorter public comment period, but it would provide us enough time to get this approved before the April deadline. So, and we were all made aware a little too late to get this implemented ahead of time, or we would have had it on our last meeting agenda. There's a couple, I think there's a couple of options. Steve actually, when I spoke with him a little bit about this and whether or not we should hold a special meeting, Steve Grow did say that he's the one who pointed out that there's no 30-day public comment period required in the code. That was just in our rule. And also I'm trying to think of, I just lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. Oh, he proposed that we might want to consider actually putting both rules out for public comment, the one with the current fees and the one with the proposed increase in fees, if we're concerned that the county commission might not accept the increased fees. So then when we're putting it out to the county commission, they have the choice of one of those rules. So that's something you guys can consider. You can discuss that. That's up to you. And then the other thing that I did want to put out there for discussion is, this is maybe a question for the lawyer. I don't know. Do we need to include some language stating this rule will only go into effect if the current state rule is repealed? It is expected to be repealed, but there's still a small chance that it might not be signed into law. So I think that it will be, but I just want to put that out there for consideration. And then if you wanted to discuss the increase, I do have some numbers as far as that. And I also have numbers. Last fiscal year, we collected $267,669 in permit fees and $140,770 in fees for provided services. Those were all the environmental health fees that these rules affect. So in total, our revenue from environmental health fees last year was $408,000, which is about 28% of our total revenue for the health department. last fiscal year. So another thing to consider with the increase in fees is that current EH salaries and benefits is around $450,000. And that's nearly $100,000 more than it was 4 years ago. So due to salary increases and an additional employee. And so those are things to consider. A 20% increase in fees would increase revenue by approximately $78,000 based on the estimated revenue for fiscal year 2025. So I'm going to just, I guess, open it up to discussion. You guys can ask questions. We can look at whatever you want to. I can share my screen if you want me to.
So Gillian, our current fees are pretty much set at what the state
The
code
state
allowed as
maximum.
maximum, right?
Yes.
And so, but our salaries in the Eastern Panhandle are higher than in most of the state.
Yes.
So even if we do the maximum, it's not really adjusted for cost of living or anything of the employees or the businesses.
Correct.
Due to the time-sensitive nature of all of this, would this be more palatable to the public and the county commission if we left the fees the same? And if we did that, would we be able to increase them at a later date?
That was one of my thoughts too, because of the time sensitive nature and us not having the 30 days for a public comment period right now. We don't really have time to do a 30-day public comment period, but I did, and that's another point of discussion. That's up to us whether or not we want to include that in the rule. I did include a 30-day public comment period for any changes or modifications to the rule in this rule. So that's another point of discussion for you guys if you want to include that or not.
So that would be for going forward, right?
Yes, but it's not required in chapter 16, but if I put it in the rule, it will be required in the future for any changes to the rule.
And that the fees would be whether it's the current fee structure, like the current fee levels, or if we were to approve the 20%, assuming all gets approved, that becomes effective for fiscal year 25, which is this July 1st, correct?
Yes. Well, actually, it would be, I don't know, the increase maybe. I'm not sure how we would do that because the rule we really need to be effective in April when this other rule is repealed in order for us to charge fees.
Right.
So that's why what Anne is saying might make more sense for now is just present them the rule with the current fee structure already, and then at a later date, present the change with an increase.
Yes, I think that's better. I'm very hesitant to increase fees for 20%. It's way too high. What's the inflation rate that that reported out as of today? Like within 4 years, we changed from 20% to 20% increase. That's a lot of money.
Can you give some specifics on what a 20% increase would look like for certain permit fees or for other certain fees? Because 20% sounds like a humongous amount of money, but it's actually quite small considering the fees are not very high anyways.
Let me share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to scroll down to the fees. So, all right. So for instance, bed and breakfasts were $60 and that would bring it up $12 to $72. Campgrounds were also $6 per site. That would bring it up to $7 per site because the minimum fee was $6 or $60 before. Same thing with the care facilities. Some of the higher fees we have, this $150 used to be $125. The $222, I think, was $175 prior to that. Maybe 185. I'd have to look at that, and the other one to see what it was. The $150 was $125. This was $250 before the food service establishment, and this was $375 before, and this was $500. So the food service establishment would go up fairly significantly for a very large food establishment, but the small ones would only see a $25 increase. The liquor license, that went up $25. This for small hotel motels went up $25. That would also be the same rate for short-term rentals. That's what we charge short-term rentals, is this fee. And then 21 to 50 rooms, that was $250 before. This, I believe, was $375 before, maybe $375, and this was $500. So these were $185 before, and I can't remember what the fee was for this, but 20% less, so $90 less than that. So yeah. And then industrial, those were 100 before. Industrial ground fees, we don't even have any of those. Yeah, so that's basically what we're looking at as far as these increases. I did a little less on most of the those all stay the same. Those are in code. So these ones right here, and this is also the same. That's just and so is the 25% late fee. That's the same as it was before. These, I increased the fees for services, $25 for plan reviews for small establishments. And yeah, these were all just a $25 increase is what I did for those, because it was $125, $225, and $325. That's what our current fees are. This was the same, because that fee, it's a DEP fee that we collect, and we get half of it and they get the other half of it. This is also the same because it's in our local rule, and we can't change that unless we change our local rule. Food handlers class, that's the class, I think I changed that by $10. So it was $15 before, and I upped that to $25. And the food handlers card, that's the same. And there might be something going on in the legislature with that too. We don't know where that bill's going, but reinspection fees I increased that from 75 to 100. So that's a little bit more that's the only thing that was a little bit more than a 20% increase. And then the reissue, the permit, that's the same. This is for the renewals. Yeah, I think that's the same too. Or no, that went from 35 to 50. That was 35. It's 35 currently. And then I increased this by 20%. So it was a $25 fee, and it went up to $30. So that's what we would be looking at as far as increases. It's not that much for most of them. Generally about $25. So but it would have a significant impact on our revenue because of how many establishments there are.
Correct. And this is what we pay the environmental health staff out of. If you compare the numbers for environmental fees and services, it is nearly as much as we receive in state aid. So we received we received $417,000 from the state of West Virginia in operational funding, and that accounts for a little less than 31% of our total revenue, while this accounts for almost little bit over 28% of our revenue. So failure to be able to collect fees would result in a staffing decrease on the environmental side, probably of 4 to 5 positions, which would have significant impact on our ability to permit, inspect in a timely manner. This is something that the county has gone through in a previous iteration of the health department in the mid 2010s, where they were completely understaffed, and it took months and months and months for permits to be issued, and it delayed permitting significantly and had a significant financial impact on development building and business development in the county. And the state eventually had to start sending in the state sanitarian or the regional sanitarian, which hadn't been filled until recently, and it took months and months and months for those permits to come through. So we're hoping to avoid having an impact of that nature on the county.
Gino, I try to make it's clear. I try to understand that you say if we don't do this, we're gonna lose up to 4 employees.
Possibly.
So what
And,
he's saying is that if we can't get either one of these rules approved and we're not able to charge fees, we're losing $400,000 in our revenue.
Okay,
For
400 and not the 100,000 extra. So because
no, right. So
one thing we stay the same. We got the revenues of what is it, 400,000, and then we increase the fees. Then we get an extra 100,000. So I try to figure out if we don't get the. Say it again.
78,000.
78. Okay. 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 Thank you.
So if we did not get anything passed, we would not be able to collect our fees in a few months. Is that correct?
Yes.
And we are expecting $250,000
This
for
is when
this fiscal
this is when
year's
we
budget.
do all the renewals for food establishments. So this is what our time when all the money starts coming is basically between April and July is when we collect most of our money.
So what is the motivation behind this legislation? Are they trying to shift this responsibilities to the county? Is the state going to make up any of this funding if these are stopped? Why would this be?
It's from what we've been told, it seems like they are trying to shift it to the counties, and basically after Senate Bill 12 changed some of the language in Chapter 16, requiring county commission approval for things. They think that this is more in line with that, allowing the counties to decide what the fees are. Although it's because to me, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because they always want uniformity. They don't like it when the counties are all different. Like during COVID, they first told the counties come up with your own rules, and then they were like, nope, we got to do something statewide because nobody's happy with that. So for me, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It makes more sense to keep the maximum fees with the state, but also it opens things up for counties to implement their own fees that make more sense for their county, but you have to have supportive county commissions. So,
Well, that I thought was the impetus behind the passing of this legislation. Kind of like the idea of more local control, more decentralization, and that way you can incorporate what is in essence it's locality pay, because Jefferson County is simply more expensive to do, to fund operations of almost anything than in most parts of the state.
very true. So, and
Does this
that
also open up, but also with this legislation, it also opens up the ability for potentially the county commissions to increase, like there's always been a cap set by the state or the maximum set of fees. So now this also will allow essentially county commissions to increase fees with no cap in place. Correct?
Yes.
And this is not a tax, it's a fee for a service. And we are mandated to provide this service. So if you have an unfunded mandate, that's a problem.
I think I'm still inclined to be in favor of, with the short notice, sending all of this out for public notice and following the process at the fee structure the same as it is, and then try to increase these fees later. I think this is too much to try to do all of it at one time.
I agree with Ann. I think increase that much money, we should get input from the business owner.
That's why I put both of these out. I didn't want to just put an increase out.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah, I get you.
I'm not opposed to the increases. I just think it's too much to do in one swoop. I'm not really opposed to increasing, and I think some of those need to be increased, but I think it's just too much to get the public to swallow at one time. And we don't want this to be a negative vote by any means at the county commission, and then we're in bigger trouble. That I think we need to do it one step at a time.
And I'm fine with that. I would just ask that you, whenever you put your motion in place for the public comment, that you allow public comment to be received until the date before our next regularly scheduled meeting.
So basically that's only what, 10 days?
Yeah, it's not very long, but also we're not making any changes.
Yes.
Other than changing it into a local rule.
How about if we present their plan to get the county commissioner to approve everything, their paying schedule as is at this coming meeting as planned, and the increased schedule, we should put it out for public comment for a whole 30 days. So that way everybody have a chance to look at it.
Well, the process though is the process for doing this in chapter 16 is that you, the Board of Health, approves it for public comment. The public comment period is not specified in there. We just have to have a date that public comments are received by and how they can submit their public comments. That's all that's required in the rule. And after it has been out for public comment, then the Board of Health has to vote to approve the rule. And once you have done that, then it can be submitted to the county commission. That's the way chapter 16 describes the process.
Right, but the current schedules, paying schedule is already approved by us. You can get it to them for approval as of now, right? And then the increase.
No, because the current schedule was based on 64 CSR 30, which is going to be repealed. So even though it's our current fee structure, and yes, we did the approvals, when we actually changed our fee for the bed and breakfast back in 2022, we should have had that approved by the county commission, and we did not. So basically what we have right now have filed with the county clerk is technically we didn't do it correctly. We thought we did, but we did not. So we followed the process in 64 CSR 30 for that, but it's based on 64 CSR 30. So our current rule is not, our current rule is the state rule. And those are the definitions that we've used. That's why we have to adopt our own local rule. And even though the fees are the same as the previous local rule, it's still a new rule that we're adopting.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. We bring that to the county commissioners to approve, then we fulfill the new rule.
Right, but we can't do that until after it's already been out for a public comment period and then you approved it.
Okay, so then we still have to do both, but I prefer the increased schedule to be out for a full 30 days. I want
Right,
everybody have a chance to look at it. Yeah.
I think that they're proposing, the Anne has proposed that we just do that at a later time, not right now.
Is it pressing to have the current schedule to be fulfill the state requirement? If it doesn't, I don't care whatsoever. I was just thinking we have to follow the rules immediately once it's passed.
Right, so it is very pressing to get one of these rules approved by both you and then the county commission before April, when the other rule is repealed. So that's the pressing issue. I'm fine with just proposing the current fee schedule in that rule, but that rule still has to go through a process. We don't have to allow for the 30-day public comment period based with what Chapter 16 says.
Right, because it's already approved by us and it's been implemented. So I don't think anybody would have anything to argue against it. So we can put it out shortly so that you have time to send it to the counter commissioner, if that's okay with the rest of the board. I'm not saying that because that's just a suggestion. And then the other one, the increased schedule, then we need to have it in the public comment a lot longer.
Yeah, I think right now we're tabling, it sounds like we're tabling the conversation around increases at all, because that's something we can change at any point in time in the future, or propose to change at any point in time in the future. We just need to be compliant now. We just have to get ourselves into compliance with the anticipated repeal of the state code that we were currently operating under. In which that I think that gives the justification for us to be able to do a shorter time period, because we're not required to do a 30-day comment period under current law, and we're not changing any of the fees. We're just basically making ourselves compliant with the new state laws.
So do you want to help us craft a motion that basically says that, Gillian?
Sure. So basically, the motion that I would propose is that you propose to put out for public comment the Jefferson County Board of Health environmental health fees for permits and services rule with the current fee schedule that we're already using, and put the public comments must be received by March 7th at 5 p.m.
So I'm happy to make that motion that you have just said, because I'm not sure I can repeat it again, if that's okay with everybody.
Can I ask one question, Gillian, beforehand?
Actually,
I'm sorry.
I think we have a motion on the floor. So by sort of Robert's rules, there is a motion on the floor. There is an opportunity for discussion. And if there's any changes, then we can always take back the motion if it needs to be amended. But following rules, there is a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Okay, I second that.
Right now, I'll open it up for discussion. Dr. Reedy?
So the next meeting that we have is going to be in 14 days. Is that correct? So is a 2-week period for public comment sufficient? It's just a question.
I think that's what we've kind of come down to, because we're not changing any of the fees. Right. We're just basically getting ourselves into compliance with the anticipated change at the state level.
The only thing I forgot to add to that was that I do have a couple of small edits that I wanted to make, and that was just taking out the wrong amount under mass gatherings and changing the word modified to amended in section 4.2.
And we have to send this to the state register also?
Yes.
So in the public notice, you're going to just kind of bullet point the compliance items that we are moving to become compliant with?
So I have to post the whole rule, but we can also say basically post before the rule exactly what we're doing. So,
Okay,
yes.
that's fine. Yep.
And that has to be posted on the website. Does it have to be posted in the newspaper as well?
No, Chapter 16 does not require that.
Just on the website?
Yes. So on the
And-
website and the state
And
register.
state register.
Right. That's all that Chapter 16 requires.
And this is all contingent on the law changing, but that can be decided before you do the final approval in 2 weeks.
That's
And then
correct.
I would just ask, well, I would ask after you guys decide on your motion, if you would like me to post it on Facebook as well.
I think that's appropriate,
I do
personally.
too. I do too.
I think we should be as clear and open and transparent as we could possibly be. So whatever channels we would typically make announcements on, and our social media is one of those channels, I think we should do so.
So do we need to amend the motion to add the 2 items that Gillian mentioned about the 2 corrections?
I think we do.
Okay.
Do you want me to say it again and then,
Please.
Please
or,
say it with the amendments and then
okay. Okay, so I would propose making a motion that we put out for public comment the Jefferson County Board of Health environmental health fees for permits and services rule with the current fee structure, with the amendment to mass gatherings to take out the incorrect amount and to change modified to amended in section 4.2, and that we put that out for public comment until March 7th at 5 p.m.
So I would like to amend the motion to be as Gillian stated. What is the difference in the mass gathering fee? What is wrong with that?
So in my current fee rule that I sent out to you guys, I had done the increased rule first, and then I went back and did the current fee rule. So there's one section under there where it still has the $72 that I need to take out.
Okay.
And change that back to 60.
any further discussion?
No, I second the amended motion.
All of those in favor of accepting the motion as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those, any opposed? All right, the motion passes. Thank you. I also, in my lateness, we did not open up for public comment. Was there anybody signed up for public comment, Gillian or Gina?
Nobody had signed up for public comment, no.
I
Is
did.
there? I'm
There
gonna
was
just
somebody
open
else
it.
on the meeting, but I don't know. I don't think she's still here.
No, Elizabeth left. I did mention to the rest of the board that Gillian and I will be going in front of the county commission for our budget request from the county to reinstate our previous county commission contribution. And so that will be on Wednesday, the 28th at 11:15 a.m. And like I said to Ann and Elliot, that we were put in with in the regular order as a county agency as opposed to being a non-county agency. So I really appreciated the county commission treating us as if we were one of the regular county agencies. So that's helpful.
think it'll be
I-
important for you also to give a heads up in that presentation to the county commission of this pending rule that will be coming before them.
Absolutely. We'll give them a
Um,
heads up on that.
do we need to table the increase to make it look legal? Because it's
We're
on
not-
the,
it wasn't a
agenda.
mo-
Is it?
Yeah, we
It's
weren't
on
No,
the
it
agenda.
was,
Is it on the agenda? I thought it is.
Well, the agenda basically was to accept one of the rules and push them
Okay.
forward. So,
Okay, that's
yeah.
fine.
So I don't
The
think
only,
it's
oh,
officially
the only
tabled.
comment I've got is for sort of food for thought. This is Steve. Is that if this law passes, it next year when you're doing your budget proposal, it gives you a different tool than you've had in the past. In the past, you've always locked into whatever the state fee schedule was. This way, if you want to expand services, you have the option of another, proposing that as part of your budget. We propose to add another person or another service and pay for it by this fee or this fee increase. I mean, just something to think about, not that you're doing it now, but before you never had that. You were sort of at the mercy of whatever the state fee schedule was. So going forward, you're more like planning and zoning or one of the other people that have fees, but they can also justify the cover an added expense by changing the fee. So, it'll give you a little more flexibility in future years that you wouldn't have now, which is, and you could probably roll this all into your budget proposal next year if you do this process we just went through on the fees way back in January. You'll have it ready. So when you go into March, the county commission could look at your budget proposal and your fee request all at the same time. Just food for thought. Other than that, I don't have anything.
thank you, Steve. All right, well, I think that concludes our meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn? Okay, I'll
I
make the
move
motion to
to-
adjourn.
Okay.
I
second
mean, if y'all
that.
want to hang out, that's fine, but I'm leaving.
All right, I second.
All those in
Thank
favor
you,
say aye.
everyone.
Hold on. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you very much.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.